everyday thing. It's an everyday thing. It's an everyday thing when you let your nuts hang.
How do you describe it? And then we'll ask how you describe it. What is critical race theory?
I will admit that I read a lot of critical race theory in law school. So, you know, the work of Derek Bell or Gene Stefanczyk
This is
and
the
Richard
stuff
Delgado.
no one knows but you and 6 other people.
Right. So,
but what matters is what is it practically? It's being taught in schools or some form of.
yes, there's a certain sort of crystallized version of it that is a lot less complex than what critical race theory actually is. But critical race theory essentially argues that racism is baked into all the systems of American society and that any sort of neutral system is, in fact, a guise for racial power. And so the argument is made by Derek Bell, for example, that Brown versus Board of Education, this is an argument he made in 1991, that Brown versus Board of Education was actually a way for the white community to leverage its own power. It wasn't an attempt to end segregation in public schools. Even things that are purportedly good in terms of race, so long as they uphold these broader systems, things like capitalism or things like the meritocracy, these things are actually just guises for power. And so what that boils down to in sort of practical terms is all disparity equals discrimination. If you can see any stat where black people are underperforming white people, this means the system was set up for the benefit of white people and that white people have a duty to tear down these systems in order to alleviate the racism that's implicit in those systems. When it comes to schools, what this tends to boil down to is kids who are white have experienced privilege because the system was built for white people, and we have to change the standards.
Right. Now, okay, well, so Malcolm, you tell me your definition.
Oh, I agree with everything he just said.
Oh, great.
And I appreciate you being honest in defining of what it's like to be black American, right? That is, I mean, we're talking about a system.
That's unfair.
No, I'm just saying I agree with all of those suppositions because they are grounded in truth. Look, and the funny thing is, it's not just African Americans, right? It's also the Scalp Act of 1749, where for $300 modern dollars, you had to cut off the head or the hair of an Indian to prove that you got them out of the way so they could settle. That's a little bit of American history that people should know about. The Chinese Exclusion Acts of the 1840s. These are things we don't talk about.
That's not, I mean, first of all, that's not. It's not true that people don't talk about these things. We all did learn about.
You don't want them talked about?
No, that's not true either.
You want to cancel them?
No, Malcolm, I'm sorry, you're lying.
That's
lying.
That's
just
not
that
lying.
It is lying. I've personally talked about many of the things that you just mentioned. I define critical race theory by citing the actual authors of critical race theory, and you seem to be a pretty good beneficiary of the meritocracy.
All right, so putting a name on history and calling it critical race theory, I think that's where the disconnect is, because it's actual history. I mean, if we talk about the civil rights movement and the violence that occurred during that time, we can't say the civil rights movement was a peaceful movement. We can't just say, white people were so accepting of the civil rights movement, because that's not true. We can talk about, well, one thing we talk about is Thanksgiving. Remember in Thanksgiving where some kids dressed up as pilgrims and the other half of the class dressed up as Native Americans, and then we all came together at the table and had lunch, which was probably turkey and dressing. It was terrible, probably too. But actually, my schools wasn't terrible. We had black cooks, so our food was always hitting. Besides the square pizza, and stuff that they feed every kid, our food was legit. So, it is what it is. But I'm just saying, that was fake. Nobody came to know. Nobody. Now, Native Americans did. Some Native Americans did go to when the Spaniards came over and they started moving into the land. Some Native Americans was like, "Come on, come feast with us." And then, the Spaniards waited till they was sleeping, killing them, and then they was giving them all smallpox from the blankets and stuff like that and things of that nature. The worst stuff was happening. Then the Native Americans that fought back, they call them savages. That's why you don't have schools that with the mascot called the Savages anymore. You know what I mean? Like, the only thing we have is like the Atlanta Braves. But I think did they get rid of the Cleveland Indians? And they gave rid of the Cleveland Indians and the Washington Redskins. Why? Why? Why, you might ask? You know, even though some Native Americans disagreed with the fact that they did that, but again, they called them savages because they fought back. They didn't want them to just take over their land, so they called them dangerous people. No, they were just protecting their land. Like they literally was protecting y'all from the world, and they, you know, and then so when you talk about the Tulsa riot, right? You can call it the Tulsa or the Tulsa massacre or whatever you want to. You can call it a riot, but the riot seems like the people in Tulsa rioted out against other people when actually it was white people attacking black businesses and black people. And it was, I think it's one of the only cities known that was actually bombed by the U.S. government. Like they actually dropped bombs. I'm not sure if I'm not 100% sure that's true, but I'm pretty sure that, why would people lie about that? You know what I'm saying? Like if it was blown up buildings and stuff everywhere, I mean, it just makes sense that they would tear down a whole community of black people. And basically they don't want to tell it in schools. They say that it's not necessary to teach the bad things about America and what shaped America and what shaped black people. And, you know, you had thriving black communities in Oklahoma and the Carolinas. You had, even as far as like in Los Angeles, there was affluent black communities, but not like rich black communities, but black communities thriving. And then that's where crack was dropped off dead center in LA and tore it down in LA and in Oakland. Apparently crack started in Oakland, which I'm gonna just be honest, I don't think no black man was just like, you know, he was just in a desperate need to make more money. He said, let me just take this and make some crack. You know what I'm saying? Like, or like, I don't know. I don't think no, like, unless there was like a really, really smart black guy, like, and he chose to sell drugs, like, so somebody had to put crack in the hood and teach them how to make it. So once that was done, it destroyed communities all across America. So listen, man, there's things that we can't, but you ain't gonna teach. We're not finna teach about the crack epidemic. We're not about to teach about that, you know. So it is. I don't know. I think just calling it critical race theory when all actuality is just history. It's not a theory. Like there's no theory about it. Like how did it happen and why did it happen? And it happened.
See, because you have merit, Malcolm. So if you're going to criticize the meritocracy as an outgrowth of white supremacy, then you're going to have to tear down the system that you've succeeded in because you have merit, or do not have merit.
You know, when my great-great-grandfather ran away from slavery to join the 111th U.S. Colored Troops and fight against the South, keeping human beings as slaves, he didn't think, you know what, in 150 years, my great-great-grandson's going to have to sit on stage and argue with a guy who thinks all that's all right? I'm just saying,
Malcolm,
there is no controversy. The controversy that's made up is people saying that this is being discussed, this is being taught in schools, and that kids should be kept away from it.
That's not true.
It's not even a real controversy.
Malcolm, the fifth largest school district in America, Clark County, just decided that they were going to lower standards with regard to testing because they wanted to alleviate disparities in outcomes. That is an outgrowth of critical race theory.
Can you draw a straight line to it?
Yes.
Really?
100%. Because when you say that the meritocracy is an outgrowth of white supremacy, and then you suggest that I'm somehow denying that slavery took place or that your great-great-great-grandfather was a hero because I'm saying that I want people tested when they are in school to see if they are good at school, then what you're purporting to push now is just nonsense and such sheer bullshit, Malcolm.
I have to see more of this conversation, but it seems as if he's saying that the test scores are directly impacted by critical race theory because they're teaching critical race theory in schools, and because they're teaching that, they want to lower the standards of the testing so people are more apt to pass. I don't know. Like I said, I probably need more context on this. This clip was only 4 minutes long. I don't understand how those two correlate, But that's why he said, can you draw a straight line to it? You can't draw a straight line to it. You just lied about saying that teaching history about, you know, like, look, listen to what I'm saying. We didn't even, I went to an all black school all my life. We didn't teach about black history every day. There's black in history throughout history. When you first open up the book of your history book, it starts off with people coming to America, or American history, people coming to America. Or if you start with Western civilization and you're talking about the Romans and stuff like that, and the Babylonians and stuff like that. I remember my social studies teacher was teaching us about the Babylonians and the Palestinians and all that stuff, and I was just like, I'm lost, but the answer's in the book, so I'm gonna figure it out. Is that critical race theory? Because that's teaching that actually did absolutely nothing for me. Like, it's not like I'm teaching my kids about the Babylonians, and maybe I'm teaching about the Palestinians right now because they in some sort of conflict, you know, with Gaza and Israel and all that. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what's going on over there, but to say that like that would actually make sense back then, who knew in 2026, between when that war started, like a couple years ago, whatever. No, the war been going on forever, by the way. War's been going on forever. But who knew when I was a kid and my teacher was teaching us, shout out to Mr. Cudjoe, I think he's still alive, but he's teaching us about these wars that was going on, and here we are today. One of the biggest controversies in the world today is Palestine. Interesting, right? So nobody knew, you know what I'm saying? But then once you get to American history and you start getting through the books and you get into slavery, they mentioned there's the honorable mentions: Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass. You know, they ain't gonna mention Nat Turner. You know, I don't know if y'all heard about Nat Turner, but you know, they skinned him, and they sold his skin to make purses and stuff like that. They use African people's hair, black people's hair to stuff chairs and stuff like that. Just weird stuff, you know what I mean? So that's if that's what you know, you don't have to put all that in. Your parents should probably teach you that, or other history books, or a deeper study into American history should teach you that. I don't think it's absolutely necessary to teach every part of black history, but black history only really gets a deep dive in February. 28 days you got, and then we talk about in school weeks, you got 20 days, less than 20 days to talk about black history. You know what I'm saying? And then they're only highlighting the great things of black history. So it's not like, it's not all year long that somebody is teaching about the bad things in black history that happened to black people, or to Native Americans, or to the Chinese, you know, when they came over. It's one section in every book. And so if you want to take out that one section to make everybody else good, one thing I don't like is the slave movies. Like, I know there are some good white people back then that helped slaves, right? But the story is always about the white people helping the slaves, and not what the actual slaves had to endure as far as their family. They get some honorable mentions about their family being separated and stuff like that. But there might be one main character that's a black slave. She'll probably get raped in the movie, and you know, the white man's daughter watches it when she's little, and then she grows up and she wants to help slaves now and then she goes to be a freedom fighter to help slaves reach the North. You know what I'm saying? Let me know what y'all think about that in the comment section.